I have another scary story for y'all, and this one is the creepiest that I've told so far. This story takes us to Mizzou, and there are three college girls who are on spring break, but they want to go to a party in the Ozarks. Evidently, this is supposed to be the biggest party of the year, and they obviously don't want to miss it. So the girls set out for the drive that afternoon. We'll say they leave at around 5 p.m., and they should make it to the Ozarks by about 8:30, 9 o'clock, just in time for this party. So as the girls are driving, it starts to get darker and the weather takes a turn for the worst. To make it even worse, the driver at this point is now getting sleepy, and what was supposed to be a 3.5 hour drive appears to be taking closer to like 4 or 5 hours, which is weird because the girls had been down to the Ozarks before, and they knew the drive didn't take this long. Anyways, as they started to drive, the driver of the car starts getting sleepy and eventually does doze off a little bit, but not before her friends, the co-pilot and the girl in the back seat, shake her and tell her to wake up. Now, the driver is anxious to get to the party. She's feeling really anxious because the weather's starting to get bad, and honestly, she has been driving for a really long time at this point. So the friend in the back seat mentions that she's starving and how it would be nice to stop off and get something to eat. Now, the driver, again, is getting pretty anxious because, again, the weather's getting bad and she's just got an off feeling and she just wants to keep pressing forward. So she tells the girl in the back seat that they're almost there and they should just keep going. However, her co-pilot tells her that it might be nice to stop, freshen up for the party so she can look good, and to feed the girl in the back. But having driven that way many times before, the driver mentions how there's nothing to eat or nowhere to turn off on that stretch of the highway that they're on. So they drive a few more miles down the road when the co-pilot looks up and spots a billboard for a diner. And so she convinces the driver to just turn off the road for a little bit. They can take a bathroom break, refresh, and grab something to eat. And by this time, the driver is a little bit more anxious. Again, the weather is getting terrible at this point, and it's getting later and later, so it's dark and it's raining. So the driver obliged, and they take an exit off this highway towards this diner that they saw on the billboard. Now, as they're driving down this strip of road, they notice that there's no other cars on this road. On top of that, they notice that there's no street lights, and it's very dark out. Not to mention, it's pouring down rain at this point. So they're driving, and they can barely see when all of a sudden they get to a blockade that says road closed. Now, they just have a couple more miles to get to this diner, and they have to stop at this blockade. Now, while they're sitting there trying to figure out why the road is closed, there's a man who creeps up towards the vehicle, and he knocks on the driver's side window. And the girls all freak out in the vehicle because they're like, we don't know who this man is. There's literally nobody else on this road. And so they're freaked out, but they're trying to remain calm, and they're trying to figure out how to get out of there because, again, the road is closed. They can't get straight through. So they asked the man with the windows up if they can get to the diner. And the man was like, oh, there's nothing that you guys want down this road. And that creeps them out. And the driver of the car flips a very aggressive U-turn and speeds out of there. Luckily, the girls make it back to the main highway and they decide that they're going straight to the Ozarks, no more stops. So as they're driving, the driver mentions how she's still feeling anxious and that if they stay out there any longer, they're going to get stuck in the mud. They keep driving. Her co-pilot and the backseat person are trying to reassure her things are going to be okay and that they should still be excited to get to this party. Anyways, as they're driving, things calm down a little, but the weather is still pretty bad, and this is when they approach yet another blockade. Much like the first blockade, this one forces them to stop completely, and the girls by this point are really frustrated and they're starting to get really scared, and all of a sudden they see something black moving towards them, and it's moving slowly towards the driver's side window. The girls at this point are absolutely terrified, and this is when a light clicks on. And once this light clicks on, it shines into the vehicle. And the girls, they scream because they're obviously scared. And this is when one of them is like, oh, it's a county sheriff. So the sheriff knocks on the window. He just wants to see what's in there. And he asks the girls if they're okay. But he does tell them that they need to turn around. So the girls are still scared, but they're curious about why the road is closed because this is the shortest route from A to B. And all they want to do is get to this party. So the officer explains to the girls that the reason the road was closed was because about 30 minutes beforehand, there was a major landslide. And this landslide covered 3 cars completely. He then goes on to tell the girls that had they been any earlier, they would have been one of the cars that were trapped in that landslide. Now, hearing this, all 3 of the girls immediately got chills, and this is when one of them says out loud that she's really grateful that they tried to find that diner a couple of miles back. And after hearing this, the officer goes, "What diner?" And she goes, "The one that was on the billboard right off the highway." And the officer looks at the girls and he goes, "There is no diner a couple of miles back. and there's no billboards. Now at this point, the co-pilot, who is the one who had seen the billboard, is looking at him like he's crazy, and she insists that there was a billboard back there. And this is when the officer follows it up with this. He looks at the co-pilot and he tells her that he knows there's no billboards on this highway because billboards on this highway are illegal. There's none for miles. Like I mentioned, by this point, the girls are more spooked than anything, and they decide that they're just going to go home for the rest of the weekend. But as they're driving home, the driver realizes that the detour that they took to go find the diner took them exactly 30 minutes out of the way. The same 30 minutes that would have cost them their lives had they gone straight through. So this begs the question, what was the co-pilot seeing that night? Do you think it could have been a guardian angel? Do you think they were tired and might have seen something? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you guys in my next video.